I want to talk to you about something I've been hearing from other retirees. I keep hearing phrases like, I feel lost. I've been retired for 6 months already. Why have I not got this all figured out? And honestly, I think we are putting way too much pressure on ourselves. So, for example, we wouldn't expect ourselves to get over, let's say, a 30-year marriage in 6 months. We wouldn't expect to be completely transitioned or adapted to, let's say, a new country or a new city after moving there in 6 months, especially if we lived in our hometown for over 30 years. No, in those situations, we would say, this is a major life transition. Give it time, give yourself grace. So, why on earth then do we expect ourselves to instantly adjust to having lost a 30-year relationship with our careers? Because really, that's what it is. It's a long term relationship. I retired from my 31-year teaching career 5 years ago. I've learned a few things along the way, and it is my hope by the end of this video, you might exhale just a little bit. Hi, my name is Lisa. I am a proud Canadian grandma and mom, and if we haven't met yet, welcome to the channel. And if you're returning, hey, nice to see you again. So much conversation revolves around the financial component of things and travel and all that. But to me, I think there's a huge psychological component to retirement that we don't talk enough about. To me, there's grief involved. There's an identity transition. Who am I now? Now that I'm not this CEO or this teacher or this counselor or this plant manager, who am I if I don't have this title behind my name? There's a huge component to deprogramming. We go through 30 some years of bells and schedules and deadlines and people looking over our shoulders and being micromanaged. And then all of a sudden it just ends. And we need to deprogram and decompress. That is a huge one right there, the word decompression. And we need time. We need to give ourselves time to do that. And if that means spending a few days on the couch in our pajamas, then so be it. Our bodies are going to let us know where we're at with that. I know some people, when they retire, they're amazed at how tired they are and they just want to sleep. That's their body saying, hey, you're finally giving me an opportunity to get this rest that I've needed for so long. And now I'm going to take advantage of it. I know for myself, when I first retired, mine was a little unique because I was retiring and finalizing a divorce, and I moved from basically my hometown of 30 some years. So I was going through a whole lot of changes all at once. I was like in my honeymoon phase of my retirement and I was in go-go time, right? So I moved to Vancouver Island. I traveled all over the place, and those first 2 years were all about what's the next adventure. I did not give myself that transition time at all. It was go, 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 go. But then when I decided to move to the city where my grandkids are so that I could put down some roots and really create a new home for myself, that is when my body kicked in and said, okay, you're going to give us some rest time. There have been some days since I moved to this new city where I get up, get myself a cup of coffee, I start watching the news, and next thing you know, it's 6 o'clock. I haven't showered, I haven't changed, nothing. I've fallen asleep on the couch about 4 times, and I just cannot seem to wake up. And I know that we give ourselves heck for doing stuff like this, right? The inner critic comes out, and we say, Lisa, you need to get off your butt, get off the couch, go do something. I finally figured it out that I can look back at that inner critic of mine and say, I am doing something. I'm resting. I'm giving myself that decompression time and I'm focusing on my health. And that is more critical than anything else that I could be doing at this point. So I think that is crucial, is giving ourselves permission to have a time frame in which we just say, okay, I'm just going to decompress. I'm going to experiment with a few things, see what I like, see what I don't, no pressure. Maybe wander a little bit, rediscover yourself, and be okay with not having all the answers immediately. I think about when the kids come out of high school, and we always have this question, what are you going to be when you grow up? And some of them have an idea, boom, they go straight for it, and yay for them. Others, they're not sure yet. And so they don't want to go off to college and spend that money on something that they're not sure they want to do. Something that became really popular with the kids while I was a counselor was what we call a gap year. We actually even gave it a little name. We called it gaining a perspective. And I know some parents were actually kind of afraid of the kids taking this time for themselves instead of going directly to school, because they were afraid that if they didn't go directly to school, they wouldn't ever go. But what the research said was when the kids actually did take that time for themselves, they had a chance to, try some hats on, different hats. They worked for a little while and saw what the workforce is really like. They traveled. So they were able to see other countries' perspectives and cultures and figure out that there's a big world out there beyond their little hometown. And the wonderful thing about all of this is that when they did go back to school, they had a better idea of who they were more mature, more worldly, and they dove into their studies better, they performed better, they finished school faster. It actually worked to their benefit. So here we are. We are willing to give 18-year-olds permission to take a gap year for themselves and gain a perspective, but somehow we expect a 58-year-old to have retirement mastered within 6 months of having left a 30-some year career. It just doesn't make any sense. So maybe we just need to reframe this. Maybe retirement doesn't need a 5-year plan right off the bat. Maybe our first job of retirement is just simply learning how to breathe again. And I think something else we need to do too is stop comparing ourselves to other retirees. We watch these people online who seem to have perfect rhythms, perfect loving communities, flawlessly curated retired lives. And we're still trying to figure out what day it is. And we feel behind. But here's the truth. And I want to tell you, this is the truth. That is the highlight reel. No one is filming a Wednesday afternoon where they're just sitting in their pajamas on the couch and wondering what to do with themselves. Retirement is not a highlight reel. It is real life. Here's something else I've noticed is some retirees will say, "Oh, I love the freedom." And then 3 or 4 sentences later, they go, "I really miss the structure." And I giggle, but I also totally get it. But I also think that when people say that they miss the structure, they don't mean they miss the 6:15 get up time or the 8 a.m. meetings. I think what they miss is the momentum, the rhythm, the direction or anticipation, that feeling of usefulness. So, what I worry about is that sometimes I think retirees are trying to recreate that very structure that they were so excited to escape. We spent years dreaming of our freedom, and then we get it. And immediately we start thinking about how we're going to fill it up with schedules and systems. So after thinking about this for a bit, I'm thinking instead of asking ourselves, how can I rebuild structure? Maybe the question should be, what do I actually want to move toward? And this is where living intentionally really kicks in. I did a video about how I felt my life was a lot like being on a moving sidewalk. And I felt like I was on autopilot. And then at the end of that sidewalk, I was now on solid ground. And instead of being propelled on a very specific path, I now got to choose where I wanted to go. Now I get to live intentionally. I don't think I really understood what that meant before, living intentionally, but now I totally get it. So every choice that I am going to make is very intentional about building and creating the kind of life that I want, because those choices have to reflect the question of what actually matters to me now. So instead of creating all these systems or schedules for ourselves with color coded tabs, maybe we should just be looking for a simple sense of direction. And perhaps little goals could be giving us that direction. So, for example, maybe I want to lose 20 pounds that I've been carrying around. Maybe I want to lower my cholesterol, walk 10,000 steps a day, finally do that trip to Fiji I've been thinking about, declutter the house some more, reconnect or rebuild friendships that mean a lot to me and I feel like I've dropped the ball on them. Start something creative, like a YouTube channel. These are just examples. You get to choose very intentionally which ones that you want because they matter to you. At this stage of our lives, our goals really shift. It's a lot less about climbing, it's more about living well. So here's what I want to leave with you today. Retirement is not about escaping life. It's about finally having the freedom to design one intentionally. And maybe, just maybe, we need to stop expecting ourselves to have it all figured out immediately. Maybe this stage of life is supposed to evolve. Maybe we're not lost. Maybe we're just becoming. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear where you are in your retirement transition. Are you in that period where you are gaining a perspective? Are you still trying to find your rhythm? Please drop it in the comments because I think people really need to hear that they are not alone in this. And if this video resonated with you, please consider giving it a thumbs up and even subscribe because that really does help channels like mine. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day.